Welcome to the Connected Spirit Podcast, a space where the mystical and the human experience merge, where we explore what it really means to walk a spirit-led path. I'm Courtney Dawson, an ethical medium and mentor, and for as long as I can remember, I have felt the presence of the spirit world. But my journey hasn't been simple. It's been one of self-discovery, healing from religious and emotional trauma, navigating fear, judgment, and the loneliness that comes with embracing something the world doesn't always understand. This podcast is here to take what was once considered woo and bring it into the real lived experience of being human. Because mediumship isn't just something we do, it's who we are. Here we dive into the conversations no one else is having, breaking down misconceptions, exploring the unseen, and normalizing the journey of deep connection. We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle of being a medium. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, we'll go deep. And most importantly, we'll remember who we are, why we're here, and how spirit moves through us all. So if you've ever felt something more, if you've ever questioned the unseen, or if you're simply ready to embrace the fullness of your spiritual path, you're in the right place. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to the Connected Spirit Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to one of my new friends who is an incredible natural-born psychic medium, shamanic healer, and intuitive empowerment coach who's actually based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So she's a fellow Canadian. She's a lifelong intuitive, and her name is Kelly Ferguson. She spent years exploring and mastering a wide range of spiritual practices and modalities, shaping her unique path and intuitive expertise. She's conducted thousands of readings and taught hundreds of hours of intuitive development courses, guiding others to develop their own psychic and mediumship abilities with proven practices and real results. Whether offering divine guidance or leading a class, Kelly approaches every session with warmth, authenticity, and no nonsense attitude, striving to leave everyone feeling uplifted, supported, and truly seen. Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show, love.
Thank you so much for having me here. This has been such an exciting day for me to look forward to, just because of your amazing abilities and the things that we have in alignment together. So this has been so exciting for me.
I love it. I've been following you for a few years. You really do have this no nonsense approach to spirituality. It is refreshing. I love it. I just gravitated towards that because there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of misguided information. And before we kind of like start unpacking all of that, wondering if you can kind of take us back to like your early days. Where did your spiritual connection or your connection to the spirit begin? And when did you realize that this was something more than just your sensing and perceiving things?
Yes. And from my perspective, and I'm 46 now, so I was learning and connecting with spirit since before I was 5 years old. I don't even remember how old I was, or even having a first epiphany, we'll say, because connecting with humans around me and understanding the energy that was within them and around them, and the energy of, we'll say, ghosts, I'll call it ghosts, okay, or spirit for our audience, or at least my perception at the time of just that stuff is ghosts, right? That's what I learned in cartoons. That's what I learned from things like that. But I really started to have bigger experiences around the age when I was 11. And I had a memorable experience that really changed everything and pivoted my activities, we'll say. I remember being in my bedroom as a child, lying in my bed. My bed was kind of off in the corner of my room. And I just noticed at the foot of my bed, there appeared to be a ghost, a spirit, and it looked like the outline of a human being, but almost as if they were on fire, if that makes sense. It's just what it viewed like. They weren't suffering or nothing, but just had like these streams of energy going off them. And I looked at them, and they walked from the foot of my bed to the other corner and then right up here to beside my head. And as soon as they got here at my head, poof, they disappeared. And then they immediately started at the foot of my bed again. And they just circled. And I was, as a child, pretty scared at the moment. And I did what most children would do. I put the covers up over my head and just thought this has got to be in my imagination, all of that. And I, peered down over the covers and yep, it was still there. And I realized in that moment that even though I was seeing something I didn't understand and I wasn't necessarily comfortable with, and I didn't have any answers for, there was a piece of me that recognized that I wasn't being hurt and that
Mm.
I wasn't being harmed and that there was, there didn't appear to be anything to actually be afraid of. And so I had the courage to bring it down a little bit more and a little bit more. And then I just went into observation mode. And I wasn't reading anything. I didn't even know what readings were at that point. I just started noticing that this was happening and noticing that I was okay in that space.
Mm.
And that was such a huge pivotal moment. And minutes, I don't know how long after that, that energy just settled. And I had a big white light enter in the room at the time. And I just felt like it was my grandmother. There was no voices per se, but I just felt and knew that it was in my grandmother. I happened to be sleeping in my grandmother's old bedroom at the time in that house,
Oh,
and she has
wow.
passed away since then. I had never been contacted by her, but it was just this presence in the room, this big white light, and it was almost like an acknowledgement of what you just experienced is fine. You are safe, and I can be here too. And that really pivoted my whole journey into a place of holy smokes, this is a lot more than I think it is. I cannot deny that these things are going on around me, even if I don't understand them. It totally turned on the light where I don't have to be worried or concerned about this. I can continue to be curious. And all the introductions prior to that about ghosts were all either in cartoons or from movies like Poltergeist or Children of the Corn. So all my experiences of what I was being shown felt very different than what I was experiencing. And this one experience really allowed me to give myself permission to dive in wholeheartedly, feeling safe, knowing and feeling protected, and allowing myself to look at all the movie perceptions of what this is and allow that to fall away and explore on my own terms.
That actually says a lot about your, I want to say, maturity, emotional maturity, and emotional health, because many people, including myself, have had experiences like you from a young age, but felt fear. And that fear was so intense and had such a strong grip. There wasn't that pause, that breathing room to be able to go, okay, hold on, I'm seeing this, but I'm actually safe. And you did that. So is that in part, like how you were raised?
I no, I was raised to be an atheist, really. I
Oh,
was taught
wow.
that God's a bunch of baloney, and when you you die, and that's the end of it. Everything else is mumbo jumbo. I wasn't baptized, I wasn't raised in the church. I now and but I do have to say my parents allowed me to explore, within reason. They said, so long as you're not hurting anybody, if you want to go talk to ghosts, yeah, sure, go do it. Please make sure you don't end up in Miss Cleo's psychic network. That was made clear. But here I am, right? I was still, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I was given the freedom to explore my own way because that allowed me to, do so without feeling specific feelings of being held back.
Now, a lot of people, when they have these abilities, they want to keep them kind of close to the chest. They don't necessarily want to make it public, especially if they're in school and the fear of judgment, people making fun of them, thinking they're crazy. How did you deal with that, like through your school years and into early adulthood?
The way that I dealt with that was actually keeping that information close to my chest and only sharing it with people that I felt safe. There was maybe 3 or 4 people at most, and I'm thinking about my early teen years when this
Yeah.
was really starting to come forward. I didn't share it with people specifically because I knew and had experienced the how people were treating me and the things that were said. So I could tell who I was safe to share with and who I wasn't. And I had to keep those boundaries pretty tight. And I think that that really helped me to understand who I was and what I was doing and not to get the approval or need the approval from others over what I was doing.
And that's important too, knowing when it's a safe space to be able to share that aspect of yourself. and when to kind of hold it back. Not that you want to stay in the closet, but yet we realize not everybody's open and receptive. And that's a whole other story. We could go down another path. And when did you really step into your soul calling? Because you do psychic work, mediumship work, shamanic healing, and all of these beautiful paths have really blended for you. What did your life look like at those times when you really started embarking in not just knowing that you have these abilities, but stepping into them in more of a, I want to say, formal, professional way?
Yeah. As I had always been exploring and doing
Mm,
all sorts of things since the my early teen, and I never really put any of that down. But there came a point in, we'll say, my early 30s where I just couldn't deny my want and pull and desire to continue working actively in this space. And I divided my time. I had a corporate job, as many of us do, and I did that regular job. And it was kind of like corporate girl by day, psychic by night, right? And I ended up transitioning so that I was working corporate, but also working part time on the weekends and evenings at a spiritual store where I was doing readings and learning how to give readings in a real, I wouldn't say formal way, but practicing and finding my own feet because I'd always done readings, but just in a very loose sort of way. No plan, no practice, just feeling and giving, feeling and giving, and just moving with the flow. But it's different when you read for, let's just say, the general public rather than your friends and family who are asking questions. So I really had to find my feet and develop a way not only to deliver the messages, but to learn how to deliver the messages to different personalities, to different people, to the place where people are at. Because some people come to us in a place where they're really hurting. Some people come to us in a place of joy and exploration. Some people come to us in a place of hopelessness.
yeah.
And I had to learn, how do I adapt what I'm delivering to the needs of the individual, not just on a psychic or mediumship capacity, but on a human capacity on how they're going to be able to digest and receive the messages. Because I can give the best information, but if it's not delivered in a way to be received, it's not going to be helpful. Right.
Yeah, totally. How do you blend the responsibility that comes with being a human, an adult, a parent, but also doing this work? It's this very delicate balance, and it's not easy for the best of us, right? I shouldn't say the best of us. I mean, those of us that are doing it. I don't put myself in that category. I'm there. How do you do that? Because it's not always easy, especially when you're raising kids. I mean, I had a really hard time reconciling all of that, especially when my daughter also has very strong abilities too. And I was just trying to figure out my own shit. And then really struggled with being able to help her too and be the parent and do all of these things. So balancing the human, the work, doing the spiritual work, all of that. How do you make that work in a way that doesn't burn yourself out and just feels like really aligned?
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm doing it effectively, and sometimes I don't know if I'm doing it effectively,
Oh,
right? Um, and we have our different chapters and different phases of frustrations and areas of ease that show up. For me, since my children, I've been psychic for the longest time, since well before children. And when I was able to communicate verbally with my children, we'll say, I really started incorporating a lot of the practices and the things that I do with them. If I was, for example, speaking to my basil plant before I took leaves from it, I was explaining why I was doing it. I was explaining how I'm connecting to the plant's energy first. Then I'm creating the communication. Then this is an ask. I incorporated them in and allowed them to see the demonstration and be a part of it. Where then, for example, my children would that be like, hey, can you please go ask for some basil? And then they would go over and do the things, right? And so I've tried to incorporate a lot of the practices that I do and explain to my children what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and bring little things in. And of course, there's always been times where they're like, "Oh, mom, oh my God, don't talk about the energies again, please." Right. And then there's other times where I can absolutely see how these practices have helped them
Yeah.
assess individuals in their lives, see pattern recognition in their lives, and also understand about the cores of what is my energy? What do I need? How do I keep myself balanced first and put on my own mask before I help others? So I feel like it's just always a work in progress.
Definitely.
But I feel that the way that it's been best for me is to really remember that my energetic skills are here for a reason. And the more I employ and integrate my energetic skills into my daily life as someone who lives an intuitive life rather than just a human who does psychic readings, the balance aspect of the energy can really help our human element when we learn, hey, this is just the human, but how can I call in my energetic toolkit to help address the energy within the human world?
Beautiful. Let's talk about that a little bit. Energetic toolkit. I love that. It's important, it's unique to the individual, the intuitive. What are some things that are in your toolkit and how and when do you know when to pull on them or to
Mhm.
utilize?
And when I talk about our energetic toolkit, I'm talking about this from an individual basis
Yeah.
because everybody builds their energetic toolkit in a different way. And I feel the best way to build your energetic toolkit is through experience, through different modalities, through different teachers, through different learnings, through different practices. Because even though there's a rainbow and plethora of practices, teachers, etc., there's going to be certain practices and techniques that work best for us, for this individual over this individual. And the only way that you're going to find that is by doing it yourself,
Yeah.
right? And tasting kind of like a spiritual buffet. Let's try this tool on. Let's try this tool on. How does this work with me? How does this work with what I am naturally good at? Right. I always, for me, what's in my toolkit is pure hardcore channeling. Anyone who's ever worked with me knows that all my messages always and first and foremost come right through my head and right through my heart. I will say that always, and that's how I start every single reading. But then I will add tools to it, whether these tools are, for example, telepathy, remote viewing, automatic writing, mediumship, whatever that needs to be. I will call upon that source. And I decide in the moment, based on the energies, which tools I decide to grab for or reach for based on what energy is my client bringing to the table. What do
Yeah.
they think their needs are based on their perception, but then what is my view on a global scale of what their needs are and what the roots are? And so for me as a practitioner, I like to use the tools that address the root ailments and the causes of the conditions, we'll say, rather than the surface symptoms that people are experiencing.
And that is really an ethical practitioner because you can have people that come to you, they have a want that they feel is a need. But yet, when you get to the heart, the root, as you say, you're really able to create a bigger level of impact and healing on them because you're not giving them a band aid fix. You're bringing through what's needed for them, giving them information that they can integrate and have long lasting healing and transformation in their lives. That's incredible.
I feel that that is the goal in all of our readings. Obviously some goals are different in psychic or mediumship and shamanic, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like the goal at the end of the day, every time that we work with someone is to help ask the main question, how can we be most helpful?
And that's what it is. And I mean, as an ethical practitioner myself, I never deem that I am in this position that I know best for them. I can tune into their information, I can tune into the energies and see what comes up at this moment based on the energetic imprint or energies at play. But yet, that will never override their free will. And I always approach it from a place of how can I serve them in a way that is done with ease and grace and is meeting their highest needs. Do you ever have clients that come to you for one thing, they end up leaving with the work that you've done has been different than initially what they came in for, and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had so many times people have come in and said, I was expecting this. I wanted you to say this, and you went off in this direction. And I never even considered that perspective before. And that's our job. as psychics, as mediums, as healers, to take that step back and instead of micromanaging the ingredients of what's showing up in someone's life, to take that step back and see, where is this coming from? What is the root? What is your contribution to that root? And how do we make the changes that you can include and that you can bring forward so that we're changing the algorithm of where we're going rather than just being a victim and responding? How do we grab hold of the wheel? How do we see the components that we are in control of? And how do we start to master them, even if just in a little bit?
Definitely. When you have a client that comes to you and they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, what's like your first instinct to get them a little bit settled so you can actually get in and do that deep work that you're talking about?
Usually the first thing I do is I come right back to, what is your needs? Let's talk about why you're here today. And I almost always start every session with a cold channel or a cold reading. So many times if a client is coming to, let's just say for a psychic reading, I don't even ask them what is going on. I don't ask for their questions. I just channel straight away and I take just a couple minutes and I deliver to them what I feel like is going on. And then I allow them to fill in the gaps for me and to bring in the specifics. And from there, that's where we actually identify the problems. So when I get down to the piece of actually getting them to, we'll say, pinpoint why am I here? I notice this is where all the energy slows down. And this is where I just start to take control of the session and I start to guide it. So instead of the client being, we'll say, throwing this out, I take what that is and I allow it to be. And then I steer it from my side by saying, I see all that. Let's start here. And that starting point might look a little bit different for everyone based on the needs, based on the expectations, right? But that's where I start always, right from the client's energy, right from what they're bringing to me, and then how do we calmly control?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really, really important too, as a practitioner, that you're the one who is orchestrating the energies that are being at play that you come in contact with too, because there's some really intense energies, grief, anger, frustration, hopelessness, all of that, health issues. And it's also, I think, really important too, like a boundary to be able to manage the energies that you come in contact with, because as empaths, we can really absorb a lot and take on a lot if we're not mindful and also use our discernment too.
Yes. And I
For
think
sure.
timing is really important as well, because often when a person is coming to us and they're very upset, they're often like a waterfall. They're just flowing, giving. It's like they're trying to empty their nervous system or empty the emotional bucket, right? And so for me, from my perspective, I just have to look at that, hold that space for them, and then take over in a way of, this is the tone, this is the pace, follow my lead, bring all of that with you. It's all relevant, and we're going to start like,
I love that. I love that. And that actually helps people feel safe in their bodies, safe in their experiences, and then they're really more open to receiving what you're channeling for them.
yes,
So just go back to what I talked to a little bit earlier. I found you on social media. I don't know, it's been a few years. Follow your stuff, and you've got a different flavor on social media. You are not shy of calling things out that you feel are unethical, that are bad practices. You also are a straight shooter. You say it as it is. You don't mince words. And there's disruption in some of the posts that you make, which I love, because it causes people to stop and to think and go, wow, why do I act this way? Why do I feel this way? Why am I acting in my intuitive abilities in this certain way when it doesn't even feel aligned with me? Oh my God, I never even thought that this practice could actually be hindering my abilities as opposed to empowering it. Where does that come from? I want to know where that truth and that courage and that boldness comes from, because let's face it, a lot of people, as soon as they get on social media, they want all the likes, the comments, and engagement. Now, that being said, of course, that's important, because otherwise nobody's going to see our stuff and we can't reach people. But there's an unapologeticness about you, and you say it, but you say it in a way that it's not offensive, but it's certainly getting people to pause and to question and to reevaluate. And on social media, that can work for you or not work for you, and it's working for you. Where does that come from? I'm so curious about it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad that it's seen that way in your eyes.
Yeah.
That comes from my directory and experience of teaching myself, but then being exposed to different teachers. Like I said, I had no teachers. I think I had my first, human teacher when I was in my early 30s, when I started working at a spiritual store. And I started, as I learned and reached out and was exploring more about angels, more about shamanism, all the different pockets and branches that we can go down, I started to connect with other teachers and sink into learning tarot in depth, learning the different modalities in depth. And this is where I started to get suggestions and practice suggestions from other teachers. And as you're going through this, you also learn and connect with other students who are also sharing information about what they have learned. And what I noticed in my years through collecting and building my psychics toolkit
Yeah.
was that some teachers and practices are very inflexible, and they tend to say it's within this box. And if you go outside this box, it's wrong, it's not correct, you are not a true witch, psychic, medium, healer, whatever title you want to use. And this practice of me, we'll say sampling the psychic smorgasbord and teachers and mindset surrounding that, I learned that we all have our own individual personal skills that aren't going to be the same as everyone else. We might have similarities in different buckets, but the soul that we are is unique, just as our own soul is, and so is our communication skills. So,
Yeah.
what works for one teacher in the best way may be correct for them, but it's not an absolute. And it doesn't mean that it works for everybody. And so this is where I really learned that I have to take the teachings with a grain of salt, try them on just like you would try on shoes or clothing, and see how well does this practice or technique work for me? And am I getting the results I want? Meaning, am I getting the accuracy? Am I getting the clarity? And when I use this tool with my clients, what is the response? How well am I moving the needle for my clients? And I would rather flex and flow and use the uniqueness of what I feel is right within my own skill set to manage and balance the energies in front of me, rather than staying within a grid of someone else telling me this is the way it's supposed to be. Because we are intuitively guided for a reason. Just like when anyone's learning about cards, I say, take this lovely book and toss it out the window. Not truly, right? But the reason why I say this and I share this with all my students is that the captions in that book is just someone else's intuitive feelings of what they saw, felt, and heard when they saw those pictures and those words. That's someone else's intuitive interpretation. There may be similarities that you'll pick up on, but this isn't about you matching a number. This is about you balancing the energies in front of you. And what might be required is likely going to be outside the box at times because not every problem fits within the box. So I
Absolutely.
learned to take what resonated with me, truly, discard the rest. And I picked and chose the elements that go into my psychic toolkit or my mediumship toolkit. And I go back to the tools that work for me. And the things that don't work for me, I don't use, or I don't think are appropriate or is effective. I don't use. And that's all there is to it.
And that is so powerful because we can take a bunch of classes like yourself. I've had tons of teachers. I've traveled, I've worked with some incredible people. But though a technique works really well from them and maybe for another student, that is not the gospel truth. That is not the be all end all. If something doesn't resonate with someone, they should not feel like they're broken, there's something wrong with their abilities. It's no, you're trying to fit into somebody else's mold or box, and you're not meant to. And so, with this philosophy that you have and this belief, which I resonate with 150%, it gives people the flexibility and the liberty to really embrace their unique abilities. And for God's sake, we have so many copycats. You know, being
Uh-huh.
yourself is probably the most daring thing people can do these days, just being yourself. But yet, you create so much more impact in healing when you're not trying to mirror somebody else's expression of their abilities. You're just owning yours. So this is what I love about your your posts on social media because you speak with truth, you speak with that authority, but it's the embodiment too. No, that's not easy for everybody, Kelly. That's not easy for people to embody their abilities. What do you do as like a practice to keep yourself anchored in that? Because it's not easy.
It's not. It's not. And I find what works for me the best is routine.
Yeah.
Because, and it's not about having a perfect routine or waking up at 4 in the morning to meditate with the birds, nothing wrong with that, right? That's wonderful time to do it, of course, right? But I have found that being mindful towards my spiritual tools and my spiritual practices and making sure that I'm getting my spiritual practices in, whether that's stretching my body in the morning, whether that's doing breath work and meditation, whether that's even just sitting in like meditation for 5, 10, 15 minutes, usually not 5. Just feel my
Mm.
own energy, just to prime myself for the day. What is the day going to look like? What tools and energetic ingredients do I want to incorporate and use so that I can create what I want to do in my day while feeling good? And I find that when we lose sight of these routines and bringing in these little nuggets and gold ingredients into, we'll say, keeping our energy high and in a accessible space, that really we can get lost in the human energies very, very quickly and go down into the ego space and into the fear-based energies of what is, what should be, all the problems, all the what if and me issues, right? But coming back to my spiritual practices of awareness, alignment, regardless of what's going on in the outside world or even like next door to me, am I okay here? Yes, I am. Let's start from here. Let's build from here.
I love that. And it's good because you have all of these resources that have come from years of exploring and trying on, seeing what fits. And it's nice because you always got what you need, but you're open to receiving maybe something else that can support you too. And I mean, I even going through that in my own practice and I go, oh, this is like really good and nourishing too, right? Because we exert so much in our work that we can quickly become depleted if we don't have those resources and take that time to embody it. And I often say too, like mediumship, my psychic work isn't something I do, it's who I am.
Yeah.
It's not the 9 to 5, so to speak. It's a lifestyle. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's funny you mentioned that because what comes to mind today as we're saying this is living an intuitive life is also being aware and open to the signs and messages you're receiving every moment. And it's not always every moment, but for example, this morning I was online scrolling, doing my thing, and I came across a post that this lady was sharing about the energy of bees and wasps and what happens and why, energetically wasps might build a nest in your doorway. I went to my chiropractic treatment and there was wasps coming in through his ventilation system today, right? And even when I was listening to this lady's post, I could recognize some of the ingredients she was speaking to and the different, cultures, etc. And I was like, I see how that's showing up in my life now. Yes, thank you. And then to double down, we go to the chiropractic office and here this energy is showing up in physical form. So to me, it's not oh my God, that's weird and creepy. To me, that's just layers of the messages showing up to me and the validation of, hey, are you paying attention, Kelly? Because we're showing you it's all around you. Whether or not I'm acting on it is something different, right? So this
Yeah.
is the intuitive life. It's being open and aware of how energy communicates with you in the different and subtle and unique ways, how those messages are trying to reach you in that unique way. And then what do we do with it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, that's great to know. Thanks. This is all for our action steps. This is all for us to enrich us in some way, whether it's in our mindset, whether it's in our physical actions, whether it's in our choices and decisions. This information is being given to us for a purpose. So
Definitely.
we have to embrace it and hold it close to our hearts, say thank you, and try to see what does this mean for us? What is in my best good? How can I use this to be most helpful?
For the ones that are listening right now and they're feeling that calling, but they're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what to do.
there's a version of them that's waiting to be birthed to come into this season of fullness in their life, what would you say to them and what advice would you give?
I would say to expect a lovely roller coaster.
Yeah.
And that if you can keep a lighthearted smile on your face and a little smile in your heart as you go through these unknowns, you will do wonderfully. It's like tasting the psychic smorgasbord, as I say. Some of it's going to just instantly make sense. And some other things you're going to try on, you're going to be like, that doesn't work at all. Is it all me? Where am I going wrong? And I feel that the key for this for some people who are really just learning is to let go of the consistency, meaning the messages are going to show up in different ways all the time. And if you're expecting it to come through in the box, you're missing everything that's outside the box. And you're also missing your skill sets that you're maybe not aware that you're using. So I would say, try not to hit any darts on the board. Don't try to make it. Instead, go with what feels right. Even if in the moment it's a sound, a feeling like you're connecting with a spirit from someone from the other side, whatever it is, go with it and just see how does it feel for you. And don't expect, even though we would love this, don't expect an instant validation, because lots of times you're not going to get it. And most of us hang our hats on getting some sort of validation in order for us to trust our abilities. And energy doesn't work that way. We have to first take it and receive it. And if there's something that you're getting and you don't understand, write it down somewhere and come back to it. Keep a journal going, because you're not going to remember all these things. But when you go back to your journal, maybe 2 months later, you'll know what that butterfly meant or what that spinning top meant. But if we expect to have the answers right away and expect to have consistent experiences in this field all the time, you're going to be disappointed. So enjoy the roller coaster for the pieces that are scary and unsure, the pieces that are thrilling and wonderful and take you on a ride. And then you're going to understand what it feels like to ride that intuitive roller coaster and to include intuition and your own energetic skills within your own life. It'll be something that you adapt into and that it becomes a part of you. But you have to allow yourself to go outside the box to find
Absolutely.
who you are.
Well said. Thank you for sharing. Kelly, what do you have up and coming? How can people get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can always reach me at my website, kellyfergusonreadings.com. There are lots of resources there, not only to help budding individuals look at learning for psychic or mediumship development, but also readings as well. I'm even having a sale right now on my Intuitive Empowerment Academy for courses and for mentorship. So that's something that I can support people in right now. And it is just such a beautiful journey to be able to have all of these offerings for everyone. That way you can look at this, feel for yourself. How does this energy feel? Is this right for you? And if you're one of these people who is not sure where to start, then try my psychic quiz and start to see real life experiences of how intuition might show up for you. And then maybe you'll start to identify, hey, spirit and energy is showing up for me, just not in ways I fully understand. And this is how you can really start to look at the keys to your intuitive toolkit and start to unlock it a little. And I'm always here to help.
That sounds amazing. So everybody, Kelly's contact information is in the show notes. You can get a hold of her through there. Kelly, it's been so awesome to have you on the show, to get to know you a little bit more, for you to share your wisdom really from a fresh, authentic, modern approach. I love everything about it, and just look forward to continuing to get to know you more.
Thank you so much, my friend.
The Connected Spirit isn't just a podcast, it's a remembering of who we are, a remembering of our connection to spirit, and a remembering that we are never walking this path alone. Mediumship isn't just about speaking with spirits. It's about deepening the connection to our own spirit, to one another, and to the energy that moves through everything. So as you leave this space, ask yourself, what part of this conversation stirred something within you? What connection is spirit inviting you to strengthen? If this episode spoke to you, please share it, leave a review, and connect with me on Instagram at Medium Courtney Dawson, or visit my website at mediumcourtneydawson.com. Your presence in this community matters, because connection isn't just about what we seek. It's what we are. Until next time, trust your spirit, trust the unseen world, and trust that you are always, always connected.